Hello and welcome to the second tutorial in the introduction series on Wings3D. As I said before, in this tutorial I'm going to actually model something as a sort of demonstration. Now for the model that I'm going to make, I decided to do a Roman eagle, so the kind of golden icon that they carry to battle. Why I specifically chose for a Roman eagle is because it's kind of like a mix between an organic model and a non-organic model. So I thought that was a good idea to just pick something that's kind of in between, so you can see some organic model and then some hard edge areas as well. So as you might know, the first thing that you do when you make when you're trying to make a new model is you research. So I kind of learned about the Roman eagle a bit. And one thing that really was apparent is that it's never really the same Roman eagle twice. So every single design that I saw was completely different. So it was kind of like a difficult decision to make which one I was actually going to make. And I saw a lot of parts of the Roman eagles that I liked in certain statues, and then other parts that I really didn't like. So in the end I decided to just kind of mix and match kind of parts from eagles that I liked into something of my own design, basically. So here it is. This is what we're going to try and model. So it's pretty, it's a quick sketch, so you can see that it's pretty rough, but it should get the general idea. If you're really serious about a project and you want to really get that quality really in there, you probably should put some more detail into the shapes as well. Do a side view or a top view to really aid yourself into making this as close as possible to the concept. But in this tutorial I'm not really gonna stick to the concept here as close as I can. It's pretty free. I'm just gonna areas that I think in 3D will look better, I'm just gonna change that. So yeah, this is just a rough image that I'm going to use to just kind of get the general shapes in. Now, if you've worked with other programs, you probably want to use this image inside the 3D modeler and actually use that to work from, and that's exactly what we're going to do. So inside Wings, I can just right-click and add an image plane, and then find the image and import that as a bitmap. So now we get this plane with the texture already applied, and we can scale it up a bit and move it a bit up, just get it in position. Now you may have noticed that there's an import image option right here, and that's not actually going to make you a plane. That's just going to import the image and make it show up in the outliner, which it has right here, but it's not going to make any geometry. So if this is what you want to do, then you have to do it through right-clicking and then selecting image plane. So you can see we have this image right here, and obviously when we're working we don't want to select this. So I'm just going to lock it in the geometry graph. Again, you can see this. You can open this via window geometry graph right here if you don't have it open already. And you can just lock it by tapping the little lock, and that's it. You can't select it anymore. And now we can model from this. So if I press X, I'm immediately in the correct camera mode, and I can also enable orthographic view to be really sure that I'm going to get that closely aligned to the actual concept. So most of my models I start with a cube, so this is no different. Let's just do that right now. And what I do is in this camera I just move it on free, since we don't have to worry about actually moving it into the screen. So in depth, because we're locked to this camera in orthographic mode, we don't really have to worry about that. We can just use free and kind of shape the stuff that we want. So you can see I do that, just like that. And then since we have this free selected, I can just press D, redo the last operation that we did, which is moving on free. And now I just went to edge mode, and I'm just going to select this, press C, go back to vert mode, and again on free we can move it like that. Press D to repeat that. And as you can see, we kind of working like that to just trace the general outline of the concept art. If you have a side view, you could switch between Z camera and X camera just to get that aligned nicely. But we're not going to worry about this right now. We're just going to get this X aligned to the image, and then we're going to worry about the other axes. So I'm going to add some more loops here. And then again, just select these verts and position them. Now one thing I do is, if I want to extrude this polygon, I can just select these and deselect these by holding Control. Then I have this polygon left. That's all I have left as selection, and I can just extrude that without even changing my camera mode. That's really useful. So again, like that, just deselect the rest, and we can just extrude this a bit to get that geometry there. I'm not really worrying about the, getting it correct right now. What we can do is not extrude region, but extrude on without region and then on a normal, and you can see we're creating that extra geometry, and it's not attached to each other, as you can see. Now again, I'm just aligning it by going free and then again pressing D. I can press W to go into wireframe mode to get a better view of the underlying image. So and I'm just aligning these. One thing that, just a general modeling tip is that really every vert should help a curve. So, every vertex that you add should really just help define a certain shape, and really just to get the most out of that, you should really just check every single vertex and see if it really does what it should do. A good example would be, I could add like a vert. Hold on. I could add a loop here, for example, and then one here. Really, this is just way too flat. So what I do is I just make this more curved, just so I can get that extra bit of silhouette detail out of that vertex. So it's really a good idea to kind of force yourself to really get the most out of each vertex. So I'm just kind of moving these around to get some more equal polygon size. It's always a good idea to evenly space your polygons as much as you can. So you can see that, this polygon is pretty huge compared to the rest, so I'm probably going to have to add a new loop there and just accentuate that curve a little bit more, like so. Same thing here, just add a new loop. You can see that goes really, really fast. Let me show you that again. Right here maybe. Hold on. So to add a new loop, it really just, once you get used to it, just E, select C, and back to vertex mode with V. And that really just takes a split second to add that extra geometry. Once you really get used to it, it's just a combination of, movements, basically. For this model, I'm not going to really go into too much detail, so I'm just going to try it and keep it quite low poly. It's a pretty important, it would be a pretty important prop, since it really is an eye catcher, since it's golden, and it's kind of a will probably be in a sort of position that's, you know, eye drawing, so it really does require a bit of attention. So I am going to give it a little bit, you know, more detail, but still it's not going to be like a next gen model. I'm keeping it fairly low on the polygon count. So this curve is a little bit you know, not defined enough. It's way too big and way too straight. So again, just G. I can select this one edge, then G to select the ring, then C to add, and then again to vertex mode with V. There we go. So this one could use a bit more detail on the curve, so I'm just going to move this one up a bit. This one too, and this one too. Instead of adding a new loop, I just replaced that certain curve with a vert that wasn't really doing much. Again, just selecting that polygon that's not visible. And again, you can see that this vert doesn't really help much with the silhouette, since it's pretty much straight, this section. So that's the kind of thing that you want to avoid, and just add that curve, even though the concept, you know, the image doesn't really show that curve that well. You can just cheat and just kind of enhance that curve a bit, because, you know, there's still a difference between an image and a model. So again, in my concept, this middle, you know, feather, I guess, is a bit too thick, so I'm just going to widen this one a bit, and then lower this one in thickness, so it's more a uniform scale, or proportion at least. It's a little bit better. Now, one thing that you might come across as a problem is the following. Let's say you have to select these two verts, right? So if you want to select just the one that you can see right now, you can just click on it, but now you don't have the one at the back, right? However, if you want to select it, and let's say there's an extra loop here, and you just want to select that one, you have a kind of a hard time to draw a box from empty space, which is right here, you know, anywhere where it is not geometry, because you can't draw a box starting inside geometry. You just start selecting like this, as you can see. You can't draw a box. So sometimes it's going to be kind of tricky to select this one. Now, it's possible, but sometimes it's not. And a good thing to do, a kind of a trick to do, to draw a box starting inside geometry, is to hold Control. So now I'm deselecting, and now I can draw a box starting in geometry. And now I'm letting go of Control, so I'm back into adding selection, and then let go and you add a selection. So you start and deselect. I'm actually deselecting now. And then you can just let go of that control before you let go of the mouse click, and that changes back to an added selection. So that's a good way to kind of cheat that fact that you can't draw a box, an adding box inside a mesh. So if you have a hard time doing that, you can just use that trick. So for this part, this kind of part in between, I'm going to actually make that a separate mesh, since it's going to have a hard edge with the wing itself. So I'm not going to model that outside, you know, starting from this, I'm just gonna make it a separate part. At this point I can actually select this and just make it a little bit less thick. Something more like that. So I'm quite happy with this already, but I noticed that, you know, this is kind of a curve going on here, and then suddenly this one kind of breaks that curve, so I'm just gonna try and fix that a bit. So even though there's not really a curve in the image, as you can see, it's still a good way to kind of make your model more appealing, you know, just even curves that shouldn't really be curves. If you can, just change that, and it's going to be, you know, your end product is going to look more neat. That's something I like to do, at least. Okay, so it's not perfect, but yeah, you can tweak for its forever, really. It's not really something interesting to watch on a video tutorial, so I'm just going to stop with this. You can see it's still very planar, but we're going to mess around with that a little bit later. I'm just going to move on right now. And first of all, we can just mirror it. So duplicate, free, and then I click instantly. So now I have two copies of this wing on the exact same position. And I can just flip it on Z. There we go. And we can move it to the side into the correct position. There we go. We're just going to combine these two and rename this to wings. There we go. And yeah, I can maybe change these a bit. So instead of using move, I'm just going to use scale, because that's kind of mirrored. So I can work mirrored like that. There we go. Now for the next part, I'm going to do this intersecting one. Actually, it's just okay. So now to do that intersecting part, so I'm going to start off by selecting these polygons that I want to start out with. So it should be something like this, and this one as well. And I'm going to use extract. Something that I forgot to explain in the previous one is extract. I noticed that, and well, this is the perfect time, I guess, to explain it. Basically what's happening is I extract the polygons that I had selected into a completely new mesh. As you can see, it creates a new mesh called Wings Extract, and now we have these polygons right here, and I can just extrude these like so, and now we have the new mesh starting from the exact same polygons like that. There we go. And we can sculpt that kind of block of mesh into something that we can use. So I'm going to lock my wings here, and now I can select boxes inside the mesh without actually using that trick. I'm just going to move this inside so it clips. I'm not too worried about that right now. Again, pressing W to enable wireframe so I can see underneath, and I'm just going to add a new loop here. And again on free, and then move this one up. That should be okay. Now, since it was the exact same thickness, in depth at least, you can see that it clips kind of in an odd way. So we're going to have to scale that a little bit, like so. So it doesn't really do that. And I'm going to deselect that and select this middle polygon, add hard edges. Select these and go to edge mode to transform that selection into hard edges. And I'm just going to deselect these middle ones and give this hard edges as well. Now it looks a lot better than it was. I can just connect these by using C. So selecting the two vertices and then pressing C will connect them. And one thing that's interesting that I haven't explained yet, I think, is that, you know, we don't really need these polygons since they're completely occluded. It's completely useless to actually have these polygons in the model. So in Max or any other program, you would just delete them. But the thing about Wings is that it doesn't really work that way. If I press delete, it just makes a big N gone. It doesn't really make empty space where the polygons were. So Wings kind of handles that a lot differently, but I actually like it a lot better. The way it handles the way that is handled in Wings. If I want to actually delete these so they're completely gone when I export this, what I do is in the outliner you can see there's a blue material automatically, and it's called Hole. And what I do is I click and drag this material onto my selection and assign it, obviously. And now when I check out the model, you can see that it turned kind of transparent bluish. And these polygons are not going to get exported when you export your model. So this is basically these polygons are completely deleted. The cool thing about this is the fact that you still have the loops, so you can still actually manipulate these polygons. You can still inset them, whatever you want to do, and you can still select the entire loops without having that interruption here. So you can still use the polygons to model, but you just don't export them. So that's really a really, you know, I think an awesome way to handle deletion. You don't actually delete them. That's not even possible in Wings. So that's something you really need to keep in mind, is the whole material, something very important to understand about Wings. So everything you want to really just not export at all is, you know, you should assign the whole material to that. One of the downsides of that fact is that when you're checking out your poly count, the total poly count, it's actually not going to be correct. So you should probably, when you really want to have a definite poly count, you should export it first and then check out how much you have left. Since it is going to count them as polygons for now. But yeah, that's really the only thing that I can say about it that's negative. So anyway, I have this middle part here, and I'm just going to again duplicate it on free and then click. So we have the mesh twice there, and I can just flip it again and move it into position. There's really no reason that I should be duplicating and flipping it already, but I just like to have a better view of what I'm actually doing here. So for now I can just delete these actually, and I'm going to add a little bit more detail to these wings. So just selected the middle edge, press G and then press C to add in completely add a loop around the mesh. And now I'm just going to bevel that to about, you know, the edge here. And I can just select these verts and move them on the normal, like so. And just give that a more a beveled edge there. That's looking a lot better. So this is kind of pinching here, so I'm just going to move this a bit. But really, the end result is really the same. When you give an edge hardness, what you do essentially is, so let's say we give this one a hard edge right here. What I did is actually I split this edge, these two verts, I split them into 4 verts instead of 2. Now you can't see it, and there's still, you know, only 2 verts. But this is actually what happened underneath, you know, the process. You split these into 4 verts right here. So these are actually 2 edges to the computer at least. And when you give a model hard edges, what you're doing is you're actually making the vert count a lot higher. I actually heard about that on the site right here in somebody's tutorial, and I found that really interesting to know. So, but yeah, it makes sense. I mean, so what happens is you split those verts, upping your vert count, and in the end, when your computer reads a model, what it does is it constructs your model using the verts, using their locations. So the more hard edges you give your model, the more it's actually gonna, slow down the computer. And yeah, that's why giving a beveled edge is really just pretty much the same thing. So I decided to actually speed up a couple of parts of this tutorial because first of all, well, it was kind of boring to watch since there's nothing really new about this, at least this part where I modeled the torso or the main body. And second of all, because my total duration of the video was a bit too long, so I had to find ways to just improve or shorten the video. And yeah, since this wasn't really that significant as far as narration goes, and kind of boring to watch, it was just the best way to just save some time. And here you can see that I actually lowered the poly count on this intersecting part because I realized that it was way too much polygons. So yeah, that's a lot less there. Now I'm going to show you guys a part of this on normal speed because I think it's pretty significant about the tweak tool. So I'm just going to let you guys watch that first. Something I should have explained a little bit earlier is the following: the tweak tool. So under the tool menu there's a tweak, and I told you guys that I wasn't going to explain this in this tutorial. So one thing that you need to do, I don't think it has a keyboard shortcut by default, however I'm not sure, but if it doesn't, you can change that by hovering over the option here and pressing insert and then pressing the keyboard shortcut that you want. So in my case it's T, and then it says it's already bound, blah blah, and I wanted to redefine that, and then if I press T, I now enter tweak mode. So the same thing counts on that note for the rest. And one thing that's a bit annoying about Wings is that it can kind of be annoying if you don't have the keyboard setup that it expects. So I have a keyboard that starts with A instead of Q, which means that I had to change a few things because some of the letters are a little bit different. And one of those things was actually my undo button. So now it's it says Control W, but for me it's actually Control Z. So I just had to redefine that. If you have trouble with that, for example, your undo is not working, that probably means you have a European keyboard or something like that, and you should probably just reassign it by using the insert way. Okay, so let's continue on the body. And I might as well just explain tweak mode instantly. So basically what tweak mode does is, let me hide this again, and what I can do with tweak mode is I can, tweak verts really. If I press T, you can see that the screen changed a little bit, some of the icons are gone. So now I'm in tweak mode, and if I go to vert mode, all I have to do is click and drag to change a vert position. So I'm tweaking it. I don't have to select any menu options or nothing like that. I just right click and I can undo all of that since it was one tool usage. Okay, so back to a sped up view here. Something that I might want to elaborate just a little bit more is that once you're in tweak mode, using the tweak tool, you can just right click to go out of that mode, and then all your changes have applied to the actual model And then after that, if you Control Z, you will undo that entire tool. So yeah, just right clicking to just get out of that mode, in case you're confused about that. So I'm just kind of working on really just the roundness of this body here, because up until now I was just working in one plane, and it's still 3D modeling, so we still need to think about the other axes. So I went more to a perspective view and just kind of rounded it out. And here I'm just deleting this middle face here, and I just apply the whole material to that. So I'm going to be extruding the legs here, and since they're not really that significant to the model, I'm keeping them fairly low detail. Eventually though, there's still quite a few too much polygons on this body that I have right now, and I'm going to fix that later on. I didn't really, realize that there were way too much polygons there, and I'm going to be cleaning up on that just a little bit later. Just going to delete a few loops there that aren't really that necessary. So yeah, that's the main body. Looks kind of like chicken legs, but yeah, that's kind of good, I guess, because it's a bird. So yeah, that's the main body there. And I just extracted that big end-gon there in the center, and I used that base polygon to just extrude the neck there as a new object. And there we have our basic neck. Just really extruded and scaled that, and now I'm just tweaking a bit. I just tweaked the verts a bit around to make them more uniformly scaled and more rounded. So yeah, it's really really not that complex to make. Just really basic shapes there. Now I'm first going to do the feet from a separate box here, and it's pretty simple. I'm going to keep it very low poly, and just get a kind of the rough idea of the feet there. I'm just starting with 3 polys there, so I can extrude the toes from that, as you can see here, and then I'm just separating those. And that's going to be the toes. There's 1 at the back and 3 at the front. So I'm just going to be separating them and kind of scaling them to be roughly the correct proportion. And rotating them a bit, of course. Really exactly the same mechanics here. Just extrude, scale, move, rotate, and then tweaking the verts really. Very basic stuff. Nothing too fancy. It's really not necessary. And now I'm just, gonna try and bridge them to the legs here. So I'm gonna tweak these middle polygons a little bit so they match up, and then bridge it and fix the rotational issues between the feet and the legs. So here I just checked how many verts that one side has, and made sure that on the other side of the foot here we have the same thing, and just tweaking them to match up. And I'm gonna bridge it now. And I'm just going to actually tweak it to be a kind of seamless transition, kind of rotate it a bit so it's not too twisted there. A little bit of scaling there to just, get that a little bit more visible. You can see that's really, really, really rough on the feet, but it's not really that much of an issue, because nobody really is going to look at the feet. They're going to be pretty occluded anyway, and pretty small, so just a rough idea is quite enough. And here I'm just giving the bottom there a hard edge to get that shading a little bit more interesting. So now I'm going to move on to the head here, and the way I did it was just extruding the neck, and then just really, really roughly blocking out the general shapes that I wanted to have. So I'm not even really adding much geometry here. I'm just kind of blocking it out really roughly so I could add some proper loops later on. You can see that I wanted to have like that kind of that hair kind of spiky thing coming out at the back, and of course the beak at the front, and I'm just blocking that out. I checked out a few pictures of eagle heads, real ones actually, to just kind of complement my my concept there, because well, it was kind of a complex shape, and I needed a little bit extra attention there. One thing that's really apparent about an eagle is that the head, like the top of the head, is pretty flat. So that's definitely something I really wanted to accentuate there, and it's going to be pretty flat head. It's by no means really realistic, but by the end you can kind of see that it is an eagle, so that's quite enough for me. You can see I blocked it out right now, and I think right about now I'm going to start to add some more geometry here, and yeah, just get that better shape, a little bit more, detail in there. I struggled a bit with the actually getting the correct loops, but I got it at the end, but it took me just a little bit too much time, I think, to really get the correct loops that I wanted. You can see that instead of the area around the eye, I'm going to use that to really define just the eyebrow and the eye itself. I'm just adding a few loops around the beak there. You can see I did a few extra loops, and then we have like that that weird section in the middle where I wanted to define the cheekbone. The point of this, the head, is to make it really look kind of angry, kind of, threatening. So I'm definitely going to have it frown and, just generally a very threatening shape, if you will. So you can see I'm kind of pushing that eyebrow down there to make it frowny. And yeah, really it's just tweak mode and just verts. You can see I'm tweaking just a lot of verts individually, and that's usually how I do it. It's starting to come out right now. And instead of the eye area, just again to get more that eyebrow just a little bit more out there. One more loop around the beak there, just to define the separation from beak to mouth, from beak to head, and just defining the shape. Of course, also a lot of tweaking on the general, the size of the polygons. I try to really get that, roughly the same as much as I can, at least. And here I'm just making the eyes just a little bit more insetted into the face, because it was a little bit too flat on the side. And I'm just extruding a little bit of an eye bulge there. Again, by no means realistic, but it is a statue kind of thing. It's made out of gold, so it's not really meant to be fully realistic, but you can see that it's new, I think, so that's quite, okay. And here I mirrored it, and you can instantly see that it's kind of when you mirror it, you can instantly see a few of the problems there. That's a little bit too wide and stuff, or too small and all that. So mirroring once in a while is definitely a good choice to do, because you get a lot better view of your model. And again, you can see that the head, I really exaggeratedly made the head very flat. I think that's about it for the head. So yeah, I'm going to be rotating the neck and the head itself to be on a roughly 45-degree angle. So, but I modeled it straight for now. And you can see that I actually changed that intersecting polygon of the body to be actual mesh and not just a whole material, because well, it was kind of clipping badly and you could see the blue areas, so I had to fix that and I just made it actual mesh there. I just noticed that we can really still save a lot of polygons here, and I'm going to try and do that first. So I'm just going to delete these loops. Actually, let's delete the half of it and fix up some of these loops here, because it could really use a little bit less polygons. One thing that that I haven't explained or told about yet is that when you delete a loop, I don't know why Wings does this, but sometimes it doesn't connect as it would here. You can see these two vertices aren't connected, but these are. So every time you delete an entire loop, you definitely want to check out the remaining, the mesh after that, and just reconnect these. It's kind of like I don't know, a bug or something. Maybe I'm doing something wrong myself, I'm not sure. But yeah, just something that you need to keep in mind when you delete a loop, is that when you sometimes have to connect again. Again, here you can see that. Okay, we saved a few polygons there, and that's not too bad. I'm just going to leave it the way it is right now. So for the tail, I'm just going to pop up a new cube and move it in the general position that it should be, and we can lock off the body mesh here. Just move it, generally where it should be. So I'm going to cut it in half so I can see, so I can align this middle edge with the middle edge of the body, like so. And I'm just going to cut it a couple times, like so. I can use the deform to maybe get some better shapes in there, instead of doing the curves manually. So I'm not worrying about the fact that it's asymmetrical right now. I can just mirror it back, and that's no problem. Okay, and now just finishing curve here. I can actually slide this up just a little bit. Okay. Just scaling it up a bit because it's a little bit too small. It's not very, it's a little bit, it takes up a lot of polygons because it's a lot of complex curves. So it might as well just be a bit bigger so there's more chance that you'll look at it. Now finally what I'm going to do is tighten this just a little bit, because that's going to make the poly distribution just a little bit more uniform. So tighten is always a good, or relax is always a good tool to just use at the very end and make it just a little bit more smooth, and so you don't have that kind of a manually placed vertex feeling about it. And finally I'm just gonna rotate it into the way I want. Just going to rotate it a bit and then grow my selection. And then again, same thing. I'm just tweaking again to get some asymmetry in there. Okay. The one thing that I think is a bit annoying me is that the wings are very, flat. They're not really curving at all, so I'm just going to try and fix that as well. Play around with some of the deformations and just try and give it maybe a curve that's a little bit interesting. So in this tutorial, modeling this took a little bit too long, obviously, since I've been explaining stuff. But if I was really just modeling this really quickly, it wouldn't have taken this long, at least. And the cool thing about that, about saving some extra time, is that you can really experiment with improving your model. So in this case, I could have just left it at the straight wings here, but since I have, I would have a little bit extra time, I might as well just experiment with some of the deformation options and tools, and that way you can really improve the model. Just having an extra bit of time. Whoops, that wasn't supposed to happen. So now I have that kind of a curve to it, and definitely making it more interesting to look at. Well, you could probably spend, ages trying to experiment with this stuff, but I'm just gonna keep it the way it is right now and call it finished. There we go. So there's a lot of clipping here, and I know a lot of people won't like that. It's really just preference. I don't really mind clipping in general, but yeah, I can agree that it might be a little bit more clean to really just bridge all of this stuff into one mesh and then use hard edges and stuff to, you know, define the separate parts. That's definitely true, but for the sake of this tutorial, I just use clipping and floating geometry, and yeah, it does its job well. I mean, it's not that bad. And if you don't like that, then that's perfectly fine. That's really just your preference, and that's, you know, I totally respect that. Now, this is in no way the best model that I've ever made. Just want to point that out, that, you know, I didn't really prepare this as much as you should prepare a model. So only having this one ref image is definitely not that ideal. And yeah, but still, I hope I showed you guys just a good way to model something. So just a lot of tricks, especially the fact that I use to add a loop, that I use the G, C, and then back to V quite a lot. That really just goes, you know, really fast, and then you can go back to vertex mode, right click, and move on free depending on your camera, and press D to repeat that, or you can just go into tweak mode and, you know, right away just tweak those verts a bit. So that's really just something that I kind of learned to use over the time to improve my speed, at least. In the end, it's just you know, these are just some tips, but if you just experiment inside the package yourself, you're going to find out, you know, the way you want to model inside it, and the way, you know, that works best for you. And yeah, so that's really all I wanted to explain with this tutorial. In the next tutorial, I'm going to unwrap this model. So yeah, really just try and make a clean unwrap of this model, and then just you know, explain the way it works, and, you know, why we put these hard edges there and stuff. And yeah, I'm not going to texture it likely, at least not in the tutorial, because that's completely beside the point of Wings3D, at least. It's not a Photoshop tutorial, obviously, so it's just going to be an unwrap, and yeah. So before I end this tutorial, I just wanted to show you guys a better example of something that, you know, was modeled in Wings that's a little bit more worthy of showing, I think. We're just going to quickly save this as Eagle and then open up my ATST. In the beginning of the tutorial, I showed that in the picture, and yeah, this is really just a high poly model. This particular case is a high poly, and again, this is completely modeled in Wings. So you can see that there's a couple of primitives floating around here, and I use these to kind of as a quicker way to get that model, you know, inside my right-clicking and cube, and selecting cylinder or cube, and then having it spawn somewhere in the center. I just wanted to get that base mesh just right there, so I can just duplicate from it, and move it along my model so I have quick access to one of these two base meshes. That's one thing that I did. Now you can see that this is just a lot of floating geometry. You know, it's really not that fancy modeling, but I just wanted to show you guys that, you know, you can make high poly stuff and detailed stuff inside Wings. Just the same method that I just showed you guys in the low poly, just a lot of edge loop adding and a lot of tweaking and stuff like that. It's really just exactly the same way. And all of this is from basic, you know, primitives like a cube or a cylinder. All of it, really. And you can see that also I used these images as my base to get the proportions generally, and then I used the whole set of reference images on the side just to get those details in there. It's generally not a good idea to really use your blueprints as the holy grail, if you will. You just want to use the measure of general proportion kind of constraints, and then really just the details and even other proportions, just get them and eyeball them off of a collection of reference images, because nothing is going to be exactly the same twice, and the same counts for the blueprints. They're not perfect, so it's a good idea just to have a collection of reference images for this kind of project. But yeah, that's what I wanted to share you guys, just as an example, as an addition to the low poly demonstration. I hope that gave you a general idea of how you can use Wings to model some quick meshes. And in the next tutorial I'm going to talk about unwrapping, as I mentioned. And yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.